This is Truth TOK. We are truth-oriented knights out for the promotion of meaningful discussions to foster democracy. At Truth TOK, we believe the force of argument supersedes the argument of force.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to another episode of show Truth Talk. We are truth-oriented knights, as you have heard, and we believe that the force of argument supersedes the argument of force. And we are here to talk about issues concerning our regions, the region of Southern Cameroon. So we're here to debate issues, and we're here to find consensus, and we're here to see how to promote such discussions, so much such that it leads to a more peaceful environment and eventually lead to the end of the crisis or the war that we are experiencing in this region. One of our goals in this project, Truth Talk, is to see that the masses are educated and have adequate knowledge of where we are coming from, where we are at, and where we're going. So on today's episode, we are going to be looking at the evolution of Cameroon. That's pre-1960, way back as maybe the First World War and how Cameroon came into existence, and right up to maybe say 1984, when we have the current nature of the country as the Republic of Cameroon. So we are also going to be looking at the impact or the implications of the President Paul Biya of La République du Cameroon and his outing and his return to the country. And we're also going to be looking at some public statements by some public figures. Without very much ado, let me start with you, Sir Kwakwa. When we talk about the evolution of Cameroon, where would you like to start from in looking at, in better understanding this crisis, for people to have a better view or better take? Where would you like to start from?
I think I would like to start from the annexation of Cameroon itself, because if we want to talk about Cameroon for real, the entity or the territory Cameroon, we can trace it as far back as that time, where a particular European nation will carve it out and say, okay, we have possession of this territory and we are going to administer it as a colony. And that evolves to a particular point in time where we start seeing the shape of the country Cameroon with some trades and agreements and treaties up to the point where we have it as a partition territory. So I believe for me, I will start at that point.
Okay. We're looking at annexation. We're looking at having a German Cameroon. I think I have with me an image representing this region and how this region changed or metamorphosed into what we have today as the Republic of Cameroon, or La République du Cameroon. So here is a map of Cameroon today. I mean, that's the last. We're going from top to bottom right. That's the last. But as you said, annexation, and then that we had the German Cameroon. German Cameroon at some point it expanded, and we had it even encroaching into French Equatorial Guinea and the British side of Nigeria, because Nigeria was administering. The British were administering Nigeria, and then we had after 1919. Basically, after 1916, after the end of the First World War, where Germany was defeated, we had the Treaty of Versailles, and we had the further split of German territories in Africa, and then we had the French Cameroon administer the area in blue, and French the French administer the area in blue, and then had the British administer the area in red. And these were all considered as Cameroon. So we had southern Cameroons, and then we had northern Cameroons being administered by the British, and then we had La République du Cameroun being administered by the French here in blue. And then we come to 1960, 1961, when the British Southern Cameroons had its independence. We had talked about 1961 on our previous episode, how we came into a union after the plebiscite, and found ourselves in the state called the Federal Republic of Cameroon. But Sir Ngabo, if we are to look a little bit more on the evolution, not really paying much attention to the simple summary we have here as per the diagram. But if we are to look at after annexation, after Cameroon, after the Treaty of Versailles, that's after the defeat of the Germans, how can one say that the territory of Cameroon has always been one, but we see the map having metamorphosed into what we have today? And if there's an argument out there that we have always been one, so there's no possible means of dividing us, what now makes for the reduction of this of German Cameroon into the small territory which is now here post 1972 or post 1960? How would you say we got to this, and how would you look at the argument that we have always been one, so we are supposed to remain as one?
I think, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think what we are talking about here, if we want to discuss issues, we should put emotions and our feelings or interests aside and talk facts. If we want to look at facts, we would be able to understand that the day Simon and Pickup sat to draw a line to separate the territories, and one territory being administered with a different culture and another administered with a different culture, there was that separation, and it started from there. And when they decided in 1961, when Southern Cameroon was supposed to have its independence, I would call it so-called independence, because they were not given the options to actually choose to be independent. They were given an option to either choose to join or choose to join this one, which some people choose to join Nigeria. If we want to claim today that it is one territory, one Cameroon, then what about the northern part that followed the other people to Nigeria? That will be another discussion for another day. So there is no way that one can sit here and claim to say this is one Cameroon. We can always say, okay, let's put our differences aside and agree on one thing, but not bringing the fact that this is a one Cameroon to discuss and then try to force people to accept something that is not right. Because if we want to talk about one Cameroon, then we will have to go back, discuss the territories that were given out to Nigeria. After that, there was something like organizing a national mourning and so on and so forth. We don't want to go to that. If we have to bring one Cameroon, then we have to go back to that. That is not possible. This is not one. These are two separate states that were administered under two separate cultures and institutions which follow two different roles. One was following the indirect role, and another one was following the policy of assimilation. And up to today, the differences is still there. Everyone can see it. And the only thing that we can do is maybe try to see how we can maneuver and move on, and which are the things that happened between 1961 up to 1982, which we'll be discussing with cons and cons as we go. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that analysis from your own end, and saying that we should maintain facts. And looking at facts, Sir Kwakwa, uh, the evolution of Cameroon, say after the independence of French Cameroon, it had the name La République du Cameroun. How do we find ourselves in a situation today where the entire territory of French Cameroon and English Cameroon has the name La République du Cameroun?
That's the whole aspect of assimilation that most persons who are presenting the case for Anglophones have been talking about. Because basically, like Viba mentioned during his wonderful speech at the parliament, there is an attempt to kill the culture, to eradicate the culture of the English-speaking Cameroonians. Because when you refer to the nation as La Republique, it means we are taking that identity of that particular nation in as at the time when they had their independence. What about our own name as at the time of our own independence? If to say we are coming together to form a new nation with a new identity, that of one party should not be that dominant and much more noticeable because they have had the same identity from the time of their independence to this point. We are the ones that have changed from whatever form that we have taken right to this point. So the name that they have is still their name, which for me it tells us a lot about the situation that they're trying to push us at the bottom of the ladder and stay at the top. And they expect now that those who are at the bottom should accept everything that comes from up there. So, which cannot work because that's the first AIO can say, okay, these guys are being marginalized. They have no say in this national territory. Now, just to raise
Yeah.
another worry, it being a debate. Okay, so Mr. Ngabu said something about facts, which is true. We can say, okay, from the time of the partition being former, where the line was drawn, we have the west and the east, or that British Southern Cameroons and French Cameroon. Now, when we look at the evolution of the pressure groups and the political parties and the different views and differences, there is a political party because I've been talking about the views of the people not being represented during the plebiscite. Now, Ndetu Manza had his one Cameroon. He kept on spelling Cameroon like the Germans spelled it with a K. Right? So he had his party, the OK. Now, his own view of this whole issue was that we should go back to Cameroon as at the time of the Germans, right? So to say one Cameroon, like in the German times. Now we have faced a situation of partition, and then we are at the situation where we are talking about independence. Should we have independence as two separate territories or as one? Now we have in the French Cameroon region, we have different political parties with different views. In the English Cameroon region, we have different political parties with different views. Those who are talking about autonomy, those who are talking about independence in union with Nigeria, those who are talking about independence in union with La Republic. And then there's one party that says one Cameroon. You look at it, you say that, okay, those who are talking about one Cameroon as in the time with the Germans are not really that different to those who are talking about independence in union with La Republic. So the point I'm trying to raise is this, that we already have this division among the Anglophones themselves during that period pre-independence. Can we say for sure that the problem started among ourselves, that we're not united in our views and our opinions or our options based on our future of independence?
I don't think there's any society united in decision. For example, we have that's for the reason why we say we have elections. That's why we had say the plebiscite for people to decide, because for everybody in a society to cling to one idea means that society is not functional, if I should put it in that way, because people definitely would have varying opinions about things. So it's I think it's okay that the people were not united in the vision of independence, or in joining, say, Nigeria, or in joining La République du Cameroon. Don't you see it in that light?
True. The point is, because the blame, the most, why am I bringing this point up is because in most cases we point the fingers to the enemy, like they are the cause of our problems. The point I'm trying to make is, if we ourselves could not, because the majority, we talk about the majority of persons who are in support of this particular view, even the political parties themselves could not take a single stand and say, okay, this is what we want for the people of West Cameroon. So if he started at that time where the divisions were already there, you see that the enemy comes in now and price on that division and uses it in a manner that favors them the most. But if we had a case where they were much more united, I think this evolution that we even lost our name from, and we are just at the level of La Republic. And I don't even know how the name of independence as at the time of West Cameroon, what name they had, because it has been lost through history. You just refer to it as West Cameroon and East Cameroon. But this division that started pre-independence, I think they have evolved right to a level where we have lost our identity and name, and we have adopted the name of a territory that had its name from the time of independence, and we are united with them and bearing their name.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to correct one thing, because actually at the time where British Southern Cameroon and they were supposed to have independence, there were parties that were saying, like, because since they were given the two options, either to have independence by joining Nigeria or by joining the Republic of Cameroon, there were a few people who said, no, we won't want to have any independence by joining. We want to have our independence by being an independent state, which was a problem that was at that time. I don't know if I understood you well. And then for the assimilation part, I quite remember the last time that even President Paul Biya of La République du Cameroun had an interview in France where he said we tried to assimilate the Anglophones, but it did not work. It shows that it was an agenda that was actually planned, well calculated, and was going step by step, and you could see it. It is not like the people lost their names or they gave up their culture. If it is in 1961 when they joined La République du Cameroun, they decided to say, okay, this is the Federal Republic of Cameroon. And in 1972, they wanted to change from the Federal Republic. I mean, Ahijo decided to change from a Federal Republic to a unitary state. According to him, one and indivisible, to maximize what and do what. And then he said people were supposed to. This was supposed to be something that the Anglophones were supposed to vote for. You know, the French is having the majority. If it was something that they say, okay, the whole country is voting, that is why more than 90% of Cameroonians voted for it. And that did not favor the Anglophones at all. And I think that was one of the worst times in the Anglophone history. That is when the identity was actually buried.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the idea of that sham of an election held by Ahijo. He passed it in his parliament and enacted it in the entire region of both southern Cameroon, or East Cameroon and West Cameroon, which was unconstitutional. And this case has been taken to international courts. This case has been presented in even in the country itself.
Because like you are saying, if you want to look at the constitution and what they drew from the Cuban Conference, and even though it was not respected, because first of all, when you read, you see that they tried to adjourn the meeting and it did not work, and even the outcome of that meeting, because they said when they were joining that the form of the state is never going to change, and the form was supposed to be a federal state, and he changed it, so it was actually unconstitutional.
Yeah, so it was unconstitutional, but let's do a little bit of the Bafia dance where we go one step ahead and one step backward for the sake of chronology. So let's see how the evolution of the Cameroons came. So we've talked about German Cameroon, and after the Treaty of Versailles, where it was split to have it as British Southern Cameroons and British Northern Cameroons, and you had French Cameroon, La République du Cameroon. And then we move forward to their independence. and French Cameroon had its independence in 1960, the 1st of January 1960, and the international community failed the people of Southern Cameroons by not giving them the option of autonomy as a standalone state, which we have already talked about that, and so we are now looking at how we got ourselves into say the United Republic of Cameroon, which was brought to us by President Ahidjo of La République du Cameroon. Realized that after the Fumban conference, and like Sangabo has already explained, it was said that that constitution which was scripted was not to be tampered with by anyone, and in case of it being tampered, then it will have to go through the parliaments of both states, because they came together as two equal states. So how then do you dissolve? Then does one state dissolve another state and have things passed in its parliament and implemented in the entire territory? That's a question we should be looking at. Kwakwa, do you have some insights on this?
I think when we use the word equal states, it's a bit fictional in the sense that they were not equal.
Mm-hmm.
Also equal in the sense that they were both independent. But when you talk about a state, what are the things that encompass or comprises its a state, right? You look at
Yeah.
like at that time, they had a military, they had maybe law enforcement agencies that were not the same, they were not available in West Cameroon. We had no standing army of our own. Now we could say, okay, if we are getting into an argument and say nobody tomorrow can come and change it, that person has an army
Mm-hmm.
to back him up, to do his bidding. You is talking about nobody should do anything about it. You don't have anybody behind you backing you. So I think that agreement was a good idea, speaking on the terms of the agreement, but those of West Cameroon had nothing to back their claim in the future because they had say like so gets up to there and says, okay, Parliament do like this. He has the military to back him up. Now you look at whether is you want to talk about Jungle Foncha or Muna or Joa. Those people do not have a military that they could say, okay, we Anglophones of West Cameroon, we are standing against this move. They had nothing like that. So at the end of the day, you have to succumb to the person who has the power. And that's what Haijo used. Because I think there are some things that occurred between the time of independence of both territories to that point of 1972. The persons were assassinated at home and abroad. Those who tried to even oppose Ahijo in any way were brutally murdered. So I think this was possible because when the ideas were brought up, there was nobody that could challenge them in any way that would have any significance, like the boys are doing now and are making a say. At that time, you just have to make your say and keep quiet. If you want to insist, you probably meet the fate of some other person who has spoken out. And we know of people like in the Dongmo who were sentenced, and we know what happened. We know persons like who were killed and assassinated abroad even. So I think that it failed because we, the Anglophones, or those who came out of that conference in Fumban, did not have a power to back their claim.
It still doesn't cancel the fact that a constitution is the most sacred document a nation has, and for a nation of law, constitution must be respected regardless of, say, the military might. I mean, they didn't have the military like you said, but they had the armed force in the name of the police, and these institutions were dissolved when Ahidjo took power. All the institutions, the governing institutions, the administrative bodies were slowly dissolved, and this region was crippled for it to find dependence on La République du Cameroon, and there stems the grievances which has today escalated to the war we are experiencing on the ground today. And it didn't end at that. After Ahidjo did that fake elections between yes and we. I don't know what yes means and what we means, the difference between the two. from my little understanding of French, oui means yes. And if this is the way elections are conducted in a democratic country, then I don't understand what democracy is all about. But then the people being lovers of peace, being people who taking a whole lot, who are thick-skinned, absorbed a whole lot. But there's just so much you can push a man till a man retaliates, and I think that's what we are experiencing on the ground today. Isn't that the case in Sangabo?
Exactly, that is what is happening today. Those things have four parties. They tried their best. They tried to talk. They tried to write petitions. They tried to do this, and it just came to a point where they could go no more. So that is why it is at the level where we are today.
Yeah. So
something, please.
Yes, Sir Kwakwa.
You spoke about the sacredness of the Constitution. That's true. The Constitution is sacred, so much so that no one has the power to do anything that goes contrary to the Constitution. That is what the Constitution is in itself is. But what empowers the Constitution and gives it value and the ability to implement it is the separation of power and the rule of law, right?
Yeah.
When you have a state like Cameroon where there is no separation of power, where the head of state basically defines and designs whoever has or hold power, it becomes so much difficult to implement the constitution. I think the problem rested on that particular aspect. That's why I said Ahijo had the power because constitutionally speaking, he was the head of state and he had control over those other entities. Even though we said okay, the legislation was they could not vote because how do we get to a point where we have a yes and yes option for a vote? So what are we going to do there? Let's just say okay, the answers are the same. Let's just say okay, all of the above, and we call it a day. But then I don't think that people were that dumb, even the Francophones were that dumb that they could not see that on those ballots, the we and the yes were the same thing. But could somebody come forward and say, okay, what we are seeing there makes no sense? Why are we voting on the same things? But I cannot believe that Cameroonians were that illiterate that nobody could say a word. Now we're barely talking about it like it was a fictional thing that happened in history, and somebody asking questions now will say, does it make sense that we go for an election and we vote for yes and yes or no and no as the main options for the ballot? So I think where we lost it all is because the constitution itself lacked the aspect of separation of powers between the organs of government. Because the legislature could tell the president that, okay, what you are doing is not constitutional. We have a country who can say, look like America. They can tell the president that this thing you did was unconstitutional. I will go and vote for impeachment. And there's a case. But nobody could say that because you don't have the power and the backing. The constitution doesn't even give you that.
These people have taken their case to the international body. They have in every court that in the International Court of Justice, their cases are there, and their cases have been well recognized. And if we're looking at further evolution of the Cameroons, I think what concreted the move by Ahijo to totally dissolve the people of the identity of Southern Cameroons was when Paul Biya changed the name from the United Republic of Cameroon to La République du Cameroun, or the Republic of Cameroon, which was its name as an independence, meaning that these people maybe a little territory which were conquered in war. That's how I look at it. If we're looking at it as marriage, you see that maybe a husband marries a wife and then the wife takes the last name or so. But then we are looking at it in the terms of a country or in the terms of a territory. It's like these people were conquered in war and then had to go under the name La République du Cameroun, which was its name as an independence. I think this is what concreted the whole move by Ahijo, and this is what further radicalized people. And 1984, after this, we had the case being presented to the ICJ. We had the Bamenda court drew its resolution saying that Cameroon, La République du Cameroun, has seceded from the territory from the territory, which was a whole, East Cameroon and West Cameroon, that entire territory. It was the argument was that La République du Cameroun, by enacting that law, has seceded from or the treaty which was signed to bring these two territories together. So I think these are the people who seceded, not the people who is claimed to the media now that are trying to separate or trying to secede, or who are secessionists. Sir Kwakwa, am I right on that?
Now, yeah, your arguments are okay, right? Like you said, a judgment was passed in Bamenda. Like, by virtue of this action, you have seceded from this territory. True. Now, if we had that separation of power, once the court gives a judgment, it is implemented, it is valid, right? But you give a judgment, who enforces that judgment? You don't have that backing to enforce it, because there's somebody who has greater power than you, who can tell you to shut up, and you shut up. So that's the problem we have from the very beginning. And
but La République du Cameroon has ratified international law, and international law, when you ratify international law, it means that you are supposed to respect the constitution of your country as presented, because when you have your constitution, it's made public, it's taken to the international body that, okay, this is my document, this is my binding document. And if it's ratified international law, it means that it has to respect its constitution, and it has to respect the human rights and whatever laws that say the United Nations has come up with.
Like we've often mentioned in the past, right? All this stuff of international law, international relations is just stuff on paper, right? There are many things that international law has as a regulation that most nations in the world don't bother to respect, right? Obviously, they have ratified international law, and they have done things that have violated international law. There are many countries, the US itself has done things that violate international law. The question about this issue is who enforces those laws? Can there be somebody who come into Cameroon and enforce that law? Is there somebody who can go to America and enforce international law based on violations? There is no authority, globally speaking, that has that power, unless the powers that be.
I think that's what the separatist fighters or the separatist leaders saw, and then now came up with, okay, we need an armed force to be able to stand the gap for us, to be able to defend the people and to be able to retaliate and take back the country as a country which has been seceded by the action of 1984 by President Paul Biya of Cameroon. So that justifies our actions as people who are standing for the recognition of the state Southern Cameroons. And that justifies the presence of what we have as Amber Boys.
Yes, I think that's the source of it all, because we noticed that on a peaceful day, on a day we decide to march and make our case, like we say, okay, 1st October is the day people come out and march. You send out the Buta gendarmes and the Buta military, and they kill and maim and harm civilians who are just going there to make a case, to make their say. So by one point in time, people will say, okay, we cannot all be peaceful. Like you see the examples in other nations. If you look at South Sudan today, they had their case, and they made their case through blood, right? People went out and fought for it and had it. So people are like, okay, we are putting other areas around the world that are doing it and actually achieving those things. We will say that South Sudan is the youngest country in the world today. They did not just get on one day and became the youngest country. They had to fight for it. I think they went through a process like we are going through now in the Anglophone regions, and at one point in time, the international community had to come in based on what was happening on ground. It was becoming a humanitarian crisis. We can term this in West Cameroon as a humanitarian crisis, but the level of reaction to it has not gone to the level where other places have been, that you see there's mass murder and those things. We have suffered that too. But I think people are not reacting to it because it's sitting there, is still down there compared to other places. Like I was told one time by one administrator, I will not call his name, I will not say where, but we were just chatting and like not normal discussion that was common at the time. And he said, how do you think that Anglophones can get independence in Cameroon today with the situation? I was like trying to talk about this very international law, like you have to get recognition, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. He told me one thing, that he met a diplomat from the UN, and the diplomat told him this, that the only ink that we can apply to the UN to grant us independence must be written in blood. I was like, what kind of ink is that? Is it the cultic kind of stuff? I said, people have to shed their blood, die for the cause. So I think we lack that power to enforce our independence, and those who have the power to enforce it will only do so in two ways. That's from my point of view. Depending on how it benefits them as a people, or when it becomes too humanitarian of a crisis that humanitarian organizations start talking about it so much that it becomes something that is evident, globally speaking. And then the hands of the powers that be will have to be forced to do something. As of right now, that's what we lack.
Okay. If we should get a little bit out of that topic, but still stay on the President of La République du Cameroon, Paul Biya. Some weeks back, or about a month or so back, he spent over 40 days out of his country. The people were not sure where he was at. The people were not sure who was running the country. And I mean, there were speculations of him having been deceased, and some people were jubilating. I mean, there was mixed feeling on the ground. But Sir Ngabu, what would you say is the impact or the implication of President Paul Biya returning to the country, or if at all he died, as some people were claiming, and what would this mean for this region, Southern Cameroons? And one other aspect is, I don't know if the constitution is not properly interpreted in their side, but there was speculations, or there were some people making the argument that after a certain number of days he ceases to be the president. So Ngabo, if you have some more light on that, let's hear it.
I'll first of all look at number one, the fact that if the president stays out for a certain period of time, he ceases to be president. I actually investigated, and I didn't see any constitution that says exactly the number of that if the president stays out for this period. I am yet to see that. I have not seen as of now. And
Yes,
to say how the president either being there or being deceased affects the Northwest, I'll first of all take Cameroon politics in general, the politics of Cameroon as a whole. If the President Paul Biya is there or is deceased, I think the way the country has been run, the thing that they say democracy is just a shambles. You don't see any democracy, you don't see any opposition. You see that it is the CBDM that controls basically everything. And whether President Biya is there or not, depending on the structure that has been put in place, I don't think that anything can change as far as that institution is concerned. And then on the other side of the Southwest and the Northwest, if he is not there or so, we can just hope that maybe another CBDM person is going to come and decides to organize something different, decide to organize a frank dialogue, not the kind of dialogue that he organized, a frank dialogue that is going to discuss the issues of the Anglophone. But I think that the only way that the Anglophones can do this is by taking the destiny into their own hands.
Which is what some of them are saying right now.
Which is what some of them are already doing.
And you talked on the issue of democracy and seeing how the structure has been skewed, and people, there's no hope for a change of, say, the regime, a regime change, because in his absence, his machine is still the one working. But then we have people who think that that's not the case, and that narrative can be changed. And we have upcoming elections in 2025 in La République du Cameroon, and we have one of the prominent figures as at 2016 who stood his grounds and made the case for the people of West Cameroon in a public statement saying this. Let's listen to it. Barrister Agbor Nkongho.
And as a community, we need to know that the time is now for us as a people to take the mantle of leadership in the country. We cannot do that with only our mouths. We need to support, we need to encourage people to register. Those who have the means, finance our brothers and sisters, pay their transports, educate them on the importance of registration, for them to register and for them to vote. Engage your parliamentarians for them to work.
Calling on people to come out or to register and vote in the upcoming 2025 elections in order to achieve the change that we intend to see, especially from our end of as Southern Cameroonians or as West Cameroonians, as some people rather have it. And he's making the case that we can take the mantle, we can seize power. How possible is this? How feasible is this, Sir Kwakwa?
Let me just rewind a bit. Like, you see, the issue lies on the aspect of democracy, right? When you ask the question as to the coming back of President Biya to Cameroon after some persons hoped that he was dead, and how does that affect the situation in Cameroon? It doesn't in any way. Even if there was a constitutional directive that the president shouldn't stay out of the country for 40 or 45 days, nobody would have done anything about it. He would have gone stayed for 60 days and returned to Cameroon, and people will still go out there, welcome him, dance and sing, and call him the God of gods or the Lord of lords, and hail him back to the presidency, and nothing will happen. Because democracy is not a thing in Cameroon. Now, as to the barrister talking about people going out there registering for voting, we have been doing that every single election year, hoping that people can go out there and make a change. That is the song they always sing. And I know people will say, don't stop trying, keep trying until you make it. But you see, Cameroon, there's some persons that have to go for that kind of thing, that kind of change to happen. With the constitution in place, with the institutions in place in Cameroon, with the very elect appointed by the government of Cameroon, with the CPDM leading party occupying all the key positions in government that make decisions that matter in terms of election, let's forget about going there and taking our destiny into our hands and making a change. It will not come through this election of this year. It will be the same thing. The 92-year-old man will still win the election like in any other year in Cameroon. Nobody can do anything about it. So I don't see what he says as feasible and realistic. I see it as somebody who has been sent out there to come and do.
Yeah, and from my own very end, I felt very disappointed because this is a man the people of Southern Cameroons held at very high esteem, and this is the man who was apprehended by this same regime and spent quite some days in prison. But the people of Southern Cameroons rose up in one voice asking for his release and did all in their efforts to ensure that he was released. And he's one of the consortium leaders who has decided to take just this part. He's the lone consortium leader who has decided to say, okay, the only way is for us to wait for 2025 and vote him out. And we very much know that this is impossible to vote the current regime out of power. And even if they are voting him out of power, it doesn't. How much does it help the case of the French or the English Cameroonians or Southern Cameroonians if the same machine is in place? Because it's all about the machine, the institutions, as you're saying. Talk about the Constitutional Council. It's headed by his appointees who are loyal to him. So it baffles me that people think in this way and are putting so much effort in championing for people to vote, to go register and vote in the upcoming elections to Cameroon. So Ngabo, your take?
Yeah, that exactly. That is why I was saying that whether President Biya is there or not, as far as Cameroon is concerned, as far as CBDM is concerned, the structures that they have put in place, the brainwashing level that they have put people, the poverty level that they have put people in order to give them sardines and bread and other things to vote is crazy. And I'll take the case of Abdul Karim the other day, who made one of his cases by saying that there is, first of all, no democracy, in my view, in Cameroon. It's this CBDM thing, the way they have built their structure is similar to the time where Ahito put his CNU And then each time during the party, there was one party. Each time during elections, he will put, and everybody will go and vote for the same party and so on. That is the kind of thing that is happening now, but in another way. Then coming to what Abdul Karim said, he brought something to say, if the vote of somebody who is reasoning, like who wants to vote for the purpose of voting, cannot be compared to the vote of somebody who wants to vote because he needs sardine and bread. And if that is happening, if people are brainwashed to the extent that you are voting for the purpose of voting because you want to change the country, and somebody else is voting because they have put the two together.
Exactly.
So it's difficult. How can you call that democracy?
Yeah.
It becomes really difficult for us to come out of this. So I don't think I just think that if Anglophones want to do something, they should take destiny into their own hands, fight for their own case, and hope that somebody else, maybe another president other than Biya, even though of the CBDM party, can get up maybe and decides to have a frank discussion with them, and maybe they can have a referendum and vote and make a difference.
However, it's my own view that no matter who comes up after Biya, regardless of who he is, especially if the machine is still in place, it's not going to change the case. But then, since we're talking about democracy, let's turn to democracy in the United States and its impact in Africa and in Southern Cameroon in particular, in that region, Cameroon. We had the United States conducted its elections, and we have President Donald J. Trump, who came out as the winner and needs to be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. What does this mean for the people of Southern Cameroon, Sir Kwakwa? How did you receive the news, and what does it mean for the people? Does it change the dynamics? Does it change anything?
Well, I'm happy that Donald Trump won based on some woke ideas are flying out there. I know he will come and tackle those, and I think he will make America great again. Good. But as to the case of West Cameroon or Anglophones, I don't think he has any impact to that because he has been president during the crux of that crisis. And I don't think we had any significant benefit in relation to him as president of America and affecting Cameroon or affecting the crisis here. So
I think one thing he did was he sanctioned Cameroon. He stripped Cameroon off their position in AGOA, which is they were benefiting some monies from AGOA. It's this organization which was helping certain African countries, both military and financial terms. So he stripped Cameroon of that privilege, and he cut down, or he clamped down on the number of U.S. forces on the ground in Cameroon helping or assisting in that region. That was, I think, to me, a significant move to pass across a message saying that we do not stand with Cameroon in its activities in this region.
I think the policy is not to arm you, not to support you in committing atrocities. I don't think it was about helping the case for the Anglophones, right? We can reduce the whatever will give you as grants or as subsidies or whatever you give that country as aid, so that you don't venture into certain acts. If you are benefiting from military equipment from a particular organization, and the only place you can use it is against your own citizens, every right-thinking person will stop that. But I don't think he was doing it in say, okay, let's look into the case of these people who are saying that they want independence. I think for me that was a step to stop the atrocities that were being committed, not for the case of the Anglophones who are fighting for independence.
Okay. recently, in a few days back, about 2 days back, he made a very significant appointment for Secretary of State. He appointed Marco Rubio, and we know Thibault Nagy has been very vocal about the situation ongoing in southern Cameroon, and this was his the statement he made as per that appointment of Marco Rubio, which has already been confirmed as at now that he's going to be the Secretary of State in Trump's administration. So he said, delighted President Trump will nominate Senator Rubio for U.S. Secretary of State. When I was Assistant Secretary of State, that's for Africa, Rubio was among very few members of Congress showing great interest in justice for Southern Cameroonians, in bracket Ambazonians, now need unity more than ever for Ambazonians to make their case. That was his statement. Your take, Sangabo.
Yes, I will first of all say I think what Donald Trump did, like Kwakwa was saying, he did not go into look into the case by actually stopping the military aid to Cameroon or the military alliance with Cameroon. That is a significant move. We have to appreciate that. It is a big step, and we have to thank him for that. For the Anglophones needs to thank him in order, because it's a big step in the right direction. That is just telling people that we are seeing what you are doing, and we don't condone with what you are doing, which is
Exactly
of significance. And the fact that Thibault Nagy has been very vocal about this and continues to be vocal, and is now bringing another person to bringing the thing to the limelight in relation with the appointment by Donald Trump. We hope that it's not only going to end at the level of stopping age, it's going to go a step further, because that was already done. Maybe this time around, we will go a step further by looking at the case that, okay, I try to do this thinking that these people will see that it is not good, and then try to make some, to redress. But since this has not stopped, maybe he will make another different move, like put some sanctions, or maybe ban some things, or maybe bring up a case, like look directly into the case. We have to hope for that. And I think that what Thibault Nagy has put on next is a big step towards the right direction for the Anglophones.
Yeah, so one very important message he's passing across there, I mean, Thibault Nagy is saying that unity has to come in place for us to be able to achieve our goals as, say, Southern Cameroonians. If we think that independence is the way to have an independent state of Southern Cameroonians called Ambazonia, unity must come into play. That is something that we have not had in this struggle, like Kwakwa said earlier on in the program. The disunity amongst us is what's killing us, and if we cannot find unity, if we cannot be united amongst our own selves, then where are we headed in an independent country? How disunited are we going to be in an independent country? That's why a lot of countries or a lot of organizations do not want to even look at our case, because the disunity within us is tremendous. And the call, I think, comes in time for us to have a soul search and actually see how to come together as one unit or as a family before asking for other people to recognize us as a single unit. But then, Sir Kwakwa, give me your last statement, and 1 minute, Sangabo, your last statement.
I think
that it is.
Sir Kwakwa?
Yes,
I think a lot of things are changing around the world, and we need to take care of ourselves first, as Anglophones, as West Cameroonians, as former occupants of, or people from the former British Southern Cameroons, because what the recommendations are given that we have to be united in hope that this person who has been appointed will come to our aid. I think everybody will take care of themselves first. Donald Trump and his MAGA movement are coming to make America great again by putting America first, until they get to a certain point where they have seen that their goals have been achieved before they will turn to focus on their own problems. So while hoping that we have aid from other places, we should look into either we help ourselves by taking our destinies into our hands.
Okay. Sangabo, your last statement before we go.
Yeah, I think it's clear that the Anglophones have to take the destiny into their own hands. That is what we have been saying. Always, it's important, but the fact that the people are coming can come in to help them get to where they are going, it's also very critical. And I think, like we have said, I think the most important thing is to bring about the unity. But to me, even if people cannot be united in one voice, in one idea, like you said the last time, they we could also do some polls to see where the people stand, because that matters a lot. If
Yeah.
we draw polls, we will see where people stand, and I think that a lot of Anglophones will stand on one ground. I
Okay.
don't want to say which, but I think that if they are to draw polls today, a lot of Anglophones are going to fall on one thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Sokwakwa Sangabu. And we are going to call it quit for today. Our fellow listeners, we are beckoning on you. We are calling on you to engage with our content. Engage us in questions, in contributions, give your suggestions, give to us topics we should explore, give to us some challenges that would help us be better on this program and achieve our goals. From us to you, it's bye-bye from us, bye-bye from Truth Talk. Remember, the force of argument supersedes the argument of force.